And at least 2 air bases housing U.S. troops in Iraq have been hit by more than a dozen ballistic missiles, according to the U.S. Department of Defense.
Iranian state TV says the attack is a retaliation after the country's top commander, Qasem Soleimani, was killed in a drone strike in Baghdad on the orders of U.S. President Donald Trump. It isn't clear if there have been any casualties.
The attacks took place hours after the burial of Soleimani. The U.S. says it is monitoring the situation closely and consulting with its national security team. Iran has issued a warning to all American allies who gave their bases to U.S. Army that any territory that is the starting point of aggressive acts against Iran will be targeted.
Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif issued a statement on Twitter claiming the attack was self-defense and denied seeking to escalate the situation into war. President Trump tweeted shortly afterwards insisting, quote, all is well, end quote, while adding that they had not yet assessed possible casualties.
Oil prices climbed sharply Tuesday after the Pentagon confirmed that Iran launched more than a dozen ballistic missiles against the military bases in Iraq that house U.S. troops.
Crude, which settled at $62.7 a barrel during regular trading early Tuesday, climbed as high as $65.48 a barrel, jumping by more than 4% by Tuesday evening.
Investors are on high alert for any signs of a clash between the United States and Iran that threatens oil supplies in the Middle East. Crude prices retreated earlier this week on hopes that energy supplies will be impacted by the tensions.
A spike in oil prices could deal a blow to the world economy. With us in the studio is economist and public affairs analyst Mayakun Ilu. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
This morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, you thought we were in the old year already.
All right, I'm certain that you have been following the issues going on that has caused tensions across the world between the issues between Iran and the U.S. and its impact on oil prices. Oil is a volatile commodity, as we all know, but before this happened, there was some sort of stability, as some reporters said, but then when the assassination took place, there was some kind of spike, and then there was also, after the issue happened, it came down again, the prices came down again, and then there are questions as to the response in the markets to this. What do you foresee?
Well, let me start by saying that there's a trilogy of courses in China. The first one says, may you live in interesting times. You know, these are interesting times. There was stability earlier, but the thing about global economy with regards to oil is that there's a high degree of volatility. You may have an idea of, okay, tomorrow, and before you know it, it changes. This is one of such moments. Oil price responds to global supply shocks. It responds to politics. It responds to supply disruptions. It even responds to weather if it is adverse. And the Middle East happens to be one of the core areas where the global supply of oil comes from. Yeah. So Middle East politically is an unstable region. So if anything happens there that threatens global supply or threatens US or its allies who happen to have a lot of the oil that we are talking about, then the people who are betting on getting the oil starts taking measures. They hedge their bets. That's where you see prices go up. Iran was hit, like their general was killed lately. Now they have responded. One of the options available to Iran is to maybe close the gate of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes.
You know, there's this water boundary between Oman and Iran.
Yes.
So oil coming from the Persian Gulf, where about 20% of the world oil comes from, have to pass through there before it connects with the other global economy. So if anything happens around there, or even take it another level further, Iran has threatened that if US responds to their own attacks overnight, then there's possibility of, if there's an attack on Iran soil, Iran might choose to, instead, because US happens to be a bit distant, but it has allies within the Middle East. Yes. So Israel is a fair target to them. Dubai, Saudi Arabia and the rest of it. So it's a dicey situation. Oil prices will rise, but not as much as what we experienced in the 70s, and for two main reasons. One, US now happens to have its own shale oil.
Yes.
You know, so they are importing less than they used to. And everybody is talking about cars now and some other options. They have edged their bet over time. So if this were to be in the 70s, maybe by now the price of oil would be like $70, but it's just about 4%. But we are still watching. It can still degenerate further, you know, from where we are starting from now.
All right. Mike Nwilo, thank you so much for your insight into this. Certainly we wait to watch how these things will pan out as we get along. Thank you. Moving on with us now in the studio is economist and public affairs analyst, Mayokun Ilo. Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to have you join us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right. Now, there are some scenarios being played out that if the war breaks out between Iran and US right now, although there could be spike in the price of oil, but it won't be like 2007, 8, 9 when, you know, oil prices hit about 140, almost 130, $145 per barrel. What's the difference between now and that time?
Well, I think the difference essentially is shale oil.
Okay.
You know,
From the US.
From the US. US used to be a big importer of fuel of crude oil, but now they have found shale oil. They are mining it essentially because maybe there is a Republican in power. They are big on energy. So as far as they are concerned, if this crisis persists, the impact will not be as much as could be expected, were it to be in other times. But nonetheless, if there is a war and the Middle East allies of the US are impacted, maybe their oil supply is targeted, the Strait of Hormuz blockaded, there's every tendency that oil will maybe, for me, I can see maybe $80 and above within the next month or so. And once that happens, you can be sure that maybe global economic recession may take a turn for it.
Now, there has been calls, like you have mentioned, for de-escalation. Even the UK Parliament were debating, as I said yesterday, pushing that there has to be some de-escalation. But then, what should marketers and investors at this time, especially in Nigeria, what can they do, you know, to protect themselves?
Well, there is nothing Nigeria can do economically because we are a crude oil exporting nation. It's good news to us. That is the one side of it. The flip side is we are also importing petroleum products.
Just like any other country.
Just like any other country. So it's not in our interest for the prices to go up. I read some accounts where we are being expected to make maybe $31 million every day. But at the same time, you might end up spending 500 million, 1 billion every day on subsidy again because you are importing the product. If we get to a situation where we have our local refineries fully functional, then we might take advantage of a very large increase in oil price.
All right. Michael, we have to leave it here now. Thank you very much for your insight. Thank you.
With us in the studio is economist and public affairs analyst, Mayokun Ilo. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Now, although investors are on high alert, but questions are because it is not certain what Iran's reaction could be at the moment. But questions have arisen as, how do we move on from here now?
Well, I think Iran has they have made a move. The next play will be from the US, at least on the larger scale. At this point, everybody will be thinking of options. US, according to the president, they've targeted something. They have logged on some sites, 52 sites, but
that has been termed as a call for war crimes.
Because you don't target cultural monuments during war. But also, Iran too has its own option, so you have to be careful where you are taking it. But in fact,
they say they have created 13 scenarios of how to attack the United States.
You know, the thing is, nobody has a monopoly of violence. It is not enough that you have $2 trillion committed to building your military, the weakest point is always available, you know. And for people who are not afraid to die, then you have to be afraid to engage them. I think that is where we are. In terms of oil prices, I think we are going to see a further rise, although it will not be at a level that would have been estimated earlier, while US not to be producing shale oil now. They are producing maybe about 30 million barrels of oil every day now, and they have met practically a lot of their
You mentioned
needs.
something that I would like for you to emphasize on, which has to do with options. When you said options, I mean, what options are open to investors at this point?
Well, people are buying Japanese yen, they are buying Swiss francs, they are buying gold, because the dollar too might be volatile a bit in this context. The people who are investing will always be thinking, okay, I need to hedge oil production. Somewhat like Nigeria too, we may be able to see maybe some people saying, okay, Nigeria is not involved in this crisis. Can you assure me that in the next 6 months, you give me crude oil when I need it? So we sign the contract to benefit at a higher price compared with what is currently going on. Because US has allies. And Iran has made it clear that if we cannot get straight to US militarily, everybody within the Middle East region who happens to be an ally of the US is fair game to us, including the military bases, one of which is what they hit overnight. So the options are there. US has its own options. They will not reveal everything to you. But while we are sleeping, something else can happen.
Absolutely.
You know, we just hope it doesn't escalate more than it has already done here.
All right. Maya Kwindo, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
You're welcome.
Thank you.